Well, Matt, I'm all for 4th of July celebration and stuff. Like, I'm patriotic and stuff, but
yeah,
streaking naked through a public
why
fireworks
would you
show
go naked? You just said you weren't going to do a dick. What do you mean?
I said naked. Are you going to get
Which
demonetized for saying
involves-
naked? The naked truth, Matt?
Yeah. You'll get
phrase.
demonetized all up and down the court.
No, you won't. What are you talking about? You
all
haven't been
up and
on
down the
YouTube.
court,
You haven't been on
that I'm
YouTube
just
for
flopping around out during 4th of July. Okay, all right, here we go. Here, let's try another intro. Hey, Level Cap, how are you doing? Welcome to the Level With Me podcast, where we don't always try to make Matimio look terrible every single intro.
Hey, this is nice with you doing the intros. Actually, that was a conversation, a topic, if you will, in the comments section of our last podcast. Some people were saying, you know what? I'm getting tired of Level always making Matt look like a degenerate. And other people were like, what are you talking about? It's my favorite part of the show. So
I'm only here for the intros and then I'm out.
Let us know in the comments what you think about our intro philosophy. Should we mix it up? Should we keep it random? Should we keep you guessing? Should Matt just take over the intros from now on with his wholesome, how you doing? You know, what's the weather like type conversation? Or let us know. Give us some info. Some intro info. See, that was, I meant to say that. And while you're at it, you know what? If you want to support the podcast, check us out on Patreon. The link for that is in the description. You can watch us live on Mondays, and we post the podcast on Wednesday, and then you can chat with us during the comments. During the stream, you can let us know when we're way off base, and we'll cut it out of the podcast. But if you watch it live, you get to see all the mistakes, and we have a nice little conversation afterwards where we chat with everybody who came by and go off topic and, you know, keep it real and whatnot.
Yep.
So, Matt, what have you you want to talk about Battlefield's last update, hurrah, for Battlefield 2042? It's pretty exciting.
Battlefield crossover with the Dead Space franchise, that one?
Yeah, well, actually, technically, so since this podcast is going live on Wednesday, that should have gone live yesterday. Yeah, the crossover thing. Has Battlefield done a crossover before?
Not off the top of my head that I can think of.
I can't think of any like blatant ones. They might have done some like Mirror's Edge little things here or there, but I don't know if it's been like this, especially with a non-DICE game, because Mirror's Edge was DICE, I believe.
It was, yes.
And Dead Space was what, like Criterion or something? I forgot who made it.
Wasn't it originally Visceral Games?
Oh, yeah. Right. They're not a thing anymore.
Yeah, they kind of got dissolved after many weird decisions by EA.
Yeah, so for people still wondering what we're talking about, basically the last season of Battlefield 2042 is live right now, and they're doing a mid-season event, and it's got a Dead Space cosmetic crossover, so you can dress up like the Dead Space guy and run around in Battlefield 2042 and shoot the zombie things that are in the same zombie things from the previous seasonal stuff. They're just kind of rehashing that.
They didn't bring in xenomorphs or anything like that. It's straight up or necromorphs. Yeah, you're taking out the robots that you did during the last two events, maybe.
Yeah,
or 2 seasons ago. I can't remember exactly.
Now, I think now you could look at this news as like, who cares? It's Battlefield 2042. The game's on its way out. I haven't played it in months or whatever. I think that's where most people fall into on that news. However, this does look like DICE is trying to go the COD Fortnite route with some of that crossover stuff going on, which this could be them testing the waters at the very end of 2042 to see how the community reacts. And
it's possible. If
it's okay, the next Battlefield game might just be crossover central, where you're running around as Power Rangers or something.
So it is possible, and they might be able to wiggle their way into doing things like that. But I also think for some reason, the Battlefield community sets itself apart where they're like, if it's not, because Battlefield players see Battlefield as like realistic, authentic, hardcore, when it's not. Like, it's just a casual FPS in a large scale sandbox, which is what I love about it.
It's always started off for like the first however many years of its development has been a military game, often historical military game. Right. And even though they did bend the rules of that, even in the very first Battlefield 1942 with their Secret Weapons DLC, where they added in prototype weapons that were never developed during the war to sort of make it more experimental. They even added a jetpack, but it looked like a World War II era jetpack. The theming of it has never gone like, hey, let's have a guy in a banana suit running around.
Right. I agree. No, I completely agree. But I just do find it kind of funny how it seemed amongst the Battlefield community is that it needs to be authentic, right? Mm-hmm. When the game itself is just a casual shooter, right? It's just fun. It's not ultra hardcore. We're not playing squad or Hell Let Loose or anything like that. But the community really cares about that authenticity, and I agree. I don't want to have a bunch of banana, suit people running around. That said, DICE has gotten burned many times by trying to do stuff like this. Battlefield 5, when it released, they were trying to go for something that was much more casual, where it's like, hey, we're going to have really unique skins. People's going to have like a golden katana on their back, or the one lady who had like, so they were definitely trying to push more into that like goofy, even though there was maybe a little bit of a hint of realism with it, because like, one guy may have had a katana during World War II, but in reality, like, you're not going to see 20 guys running around with it. And then with Battlefield,
also not the British didn't have the katanas.
Right, true. I mean, maybe you could see it as like a trophy or something, but still, like, it's super edge case. But then you go over to 2042, and then they bring in the specialists, and they were clearly trying to go like a little bit more, once again, in that direction. And once again, players are like, no, we just want the classic grounded, you're just a random soldier kind of vibe, going more towards that authentic, just kind of all-out warfare kind of experience. So they've been burned a bunch trying to do that. And if they try to do it again with the next Battlefield, at least at the beginning, I think they're going to get scorched.
Do you think we're becoming the vocal minority on this front? Where
it's possible.
Where the people who actually care about Battlefield feeling like a more authentic game have kind of progressively left over the years as the game has become more, I wouldn't say, it's hard to say more and more outlandish, but kind of embraced its more outlandish nature, where it's like, at Battlefield 1942, you could lay down on the wing of a Mustang airplane as it flew around and shoot people with your machine gun. And that was never intended as a gameplay mechanic. Players just figured out how to do it. And then DICE at some point decided to just embrace the bugs and the weird stuff and be like, that's Battlefield though. And then they started to intentionally integrate that stuff to some degree. And that's when I think it went from the game sort of having these funny mechanics that you could employ to sort of embracing the wonky mechanics. And I think that's where the messaging of the game is
they've gone beyond, like, if you go back to Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, like the Rendezvous, right, was incredible, but it's like super unrealistic. It's ridiculous. But at its core, the game, when you're playing it, it does have more of an authentic vibe to it. Like, it still feels authentically like a military-based game. So I guess I don't know. We could be becoming
it's the difference, right, between the Rendezvous being a possible mechanic to do in game, but I've never personally seen anybody do it, despite playing the game for hundreds of hours, versus DICE leading the trailer for 2042 with a guy doing a Rendezvous, right?
Right.
So they're like, this is Battlefield, and you're like, is it though? It's sort of the reality of what Battlefield is versus what they're trying to market it as feel kind of at odds to a degree. And I think the cosmetics specifically is a place where that marketing can really kind of take hold of what the game actually is and make it feel very different. I'm personally in the camp of like, I'd like it to still feel like a military game. Give me some cool cosmetics. I think Battlefield 5 actually had some good ones for quite a while until they started adding a bit more of the bespoke dudes towards the end.
Like they added like Tom Cruise in.
Yeah. It was very good right up until the last couple of DLCs where some of the weird guys started coming in. But I enjoyed that, where you could really make a character that felt like they stood out, but also looked like they belonged in that military to an extent. If they could just stick with that, then I'll be happy. I feel like BF5 was right there until they pushed it too far. And then
the thing is it's really hard to continue to make skins for a live service title that still keep that groundedness to it, because eventually you're just like, this character looks like that character, and there's only so much you can do to differentiate. And as soon as you allow for the floodgates to open and allow for goofier skins, that's where that creativity can just kind of run wild. Makes it a lot harder to just keep the same aesthetic and vibe. Yeah, at least I would imagine so.
I know. I think they would actually have to get creative over there and come up with new ways to let people feel unique that don't have to just be character skins or something. I don't know. I feel like there's more they could do. I feel like
there's only so many ways you can make a character look tactical, right? Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. Like at the end of the day, there's only so many tools in your toolbox for that look.
Yeah. I think there's a lot, and I don't know. I think that there's a lot you can do artistically. It's a fun experiment from the creative side of things, is to limit yourself and see how much you can do within those limitations. And more often than not, it turns out to be a lot more than you initially thought. But I just think it's marketing looking at the microtransaction potential, and they're like, we need shiny stuff,
Yeah.
If 20 people don't want to look like a golden guy running around with a skin, but one dude wants to be that golden guy and he's willing to drop $10 on it, then it's a marketing win, So it's very much not in the interest of the greater good of the experience, but more in the greater good of their pocketbooks.
It's all about that dollar.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting subject, since I don't think Battlefield's quite pushed it that far before with crossovers, and it might be a little bit of a taste of what's to come down the road, but who knows?
Yeah.
So, what you been playing, man?
Speaking about hot cosmetics, the First Descendant.
Oh yeah, get my anime. Get my waifu bunny jumping around.
Do you know anything about it?
I know a little bit about it. I haven't played it, but I did just cover, at least on Twitter, there. I don't know if you saw that they were copying icons from Destiny 2. Did you see that?
No, I missed that. Like straight up copying, or?
Well, it's pretty much it's like there's slight changes, but I have a hard time holding this against them too hard, because essentially what probably happened is they hired their UI guys, and some dude on the team was like, I'm just going to copy this dude's homework, and nobody noticed. And so
oh yeah, those are quite similar.
The game's just like straight up lifted Destiny 2's icons for a bunch of stuff. But what's up? You okay?
You cut out there for a second. It sounded like it was lagging. I don't know if it's me or if it's you.
Test. Can you hear?
Test. Yeah. I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it was just me.
Okay. I moved my headphones.
But yeah, I do see what you're talking about now. And yes, they do look very, very similar.
Yeah.
Like
not
it's clearly,
enough of
clearly
a reason
like,
to
hey,
write off a game, but it does make you look and go, hey, their team is, there's somebody on their team doing some stuff. I mean, COD has done that before. There's that article about how one of the COD skins basically lifted this dude's art directly from DeviantArt and turned it into a skin for the game. So it really just comes down to the weakest link on your team. So I don't want to say that
the entire company is. Yeah, it is Nexon though, and they literally had to pay out because of like bad business practices and manipulative drop rates and things like that. I think for MapleStory. So if you're not aware, for the people that are watching, what the First Descendant is, it's basically a looter shooter much similar to Warframe, but Korean. And what I mean by that is everyone's like a smoke show.
They look like Zero Suit Samus running around, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
like there's characters like just like their ass is just hanging out. And you're like, I was like, okay. I mean, it's fine. It's hard to take it seriously. Not that it's meant to be taken seriously, but there are some skins that you're just like, wow, this is like in your face about it. But like the whole gameplay loop the story is sort of like kind of forgettable, just And it's just giving you an excuse to go from area to area where you take on hordes of enemies. You get a bunch of weapons, you get mods for them, and you slowly get more and more powerful as you level up your descendants, just like most every other looter shooter.
Is there anything unique about this game that it does better, differently?
What I like about compared to Warframe, and it's been a long time since I played Warframe, so excuse me if I'm mistaken on this, is that they have really big, like, challenging bosses that eventually you'll start to encounter that are like massive, like these giant colossi, which like have unique hitboxes and they've got unique abilities. Those are really cool, and you will need to have the right loadout. You'll need to bring in a leveled up character because you're going to be leveling a bunch of different characters. And that's neat. I like being able to like throw yourself at something that is a challenge. And that's fun. A lot of these looter shooters, you just either smoke through everything or you just get slammed. That was one problem I had with Warframe. There was like no in between. Either everything dies instantly or they never die. And so it's nice to have like this big boss to like kind of test yourself on. So that was really cool. But man, does the game have some interesting design decisions? The grind, in particular, let me just describe to you the grind. So to unlock a character, which is like the main gameplay loop, well, one of the main gameplay loops,
and
you
it's
need
free,
to find,
right? The game
is free. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's free. You need to find, I believe it's 4 different blueprints, and those are scattered around, and you have to go to certain missions, and the drop rate is shown. Sometimes those blueprints can be like 20% drop. Sometimes they can be 1%. So imagine doing a mission over and over and over and over again for
I'll
a
just
1%
be the same
drop.
character for the whole game.
Yeah, pretty much. So you not only need to get those blueprints, then you got to get all of the materials. Some of them can be quite challenging to actually find in the world and
duct tape,
and get.
Batteries.
Yeah,
soda
exactly.
Cans,
stuff like that. Yeah, not exactly, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You then have to craft all 4 of those, each of them taking 8 hours real time. Once you've crafted all 4, you can then craft the
real time.
Come
on, man.
Real time.
Who do they think they are? EVE Online with their training?
It's like Warframe, right? They're trying to incentivize you to speed up the process because you can pay to speed up the process with money.
I forgot that was Warframe. It has also been forever since I played Warframe.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
You then take all 4 of those to take about 16 hours to actually craft the character. Once you have the character, you have to level them up to level 40, and that will give you like all your abilities. But then when you're at 40, you have to reset the character so that you can prestige, so that you can put more modules, which is basically your way of improving your damage and your health and things like that. And you got to keep doing that over and over and over again, leveling up so you can get more powerful. You then need to level up those modules with shards. I think they're called Kuiper shards. And then you also have your weapons you got to upgrade. It's just, there's a lot.
Modern gaming, baby.
Yeah.
Task-oriented bullcrap to hide the fact that their gameplay is bland AF.
So yeah, it is basically you're just on a big old wheel treadmill, just constantly just like, what's the next? It's nice because it does give you a good, clear indication of like what you can do to get stronger and keep rising higher and higher and higher.
In between the ladder that you're climbing, you know,
sort of, right? Like if you're someone who likes big numbers to go up and up and up, and you get satisfaction about like this enemy was really hard and now it's nowhere near as hard. I like that. And it can be enjoyable, but you really have to just like seeing your character get stronger.
Well,
the
like
combat
let's
is
say
okay.
Compared it to an action RPG like Diablo or something, where you could argue that the gameplay in Diablo is not particularly complex, but there is something satisfying about just like bashing through a giant horde of enemies, and it does
kind
that
of
very
like that.
well.
It is kind of like that. Okay. I would say Diablo does it better though. I feel like I get more satisfaction of like slamming enemies in that game. But everyone's different. The gameplay is okay, but you do come across bosses. These are like your mini bosses, and you'll find in a dungeon, not the big colossi. And their mechanic, almost every single one of them, is that they have a phase where they become immune to damage, and you have to shoot these these balls that orbit around them. And
so you mean like the original Metroid game mechanic? I mean, like that's just been every old school.
But they never mix it up. It's like
ever.
It's all these just balls floating above their head, and they move slowly,
it's
and
very
you have to
Star
take them out.
Foxy, that feels like a Nintendo game type thing, but at least those games don't do it for every boss. It's like this boss has got you got to shoot the little things and then you can fight them again. And then it's just very obnoxious and obvious phases of boss fights. Yeah. So that's every single boss.
Not every boss is that way, but like pretty much all of them. It's not a great look. So that sucks. But like I said, the Colossi fights are really fun. So I wish they kind of like incorporated the Colossi fights more often.
You're very good at pronouncing the pluralization of Colossus, by the way. You're like Colossi all over the place over here, man.
Is it not Colossi? Am I pronouncing it wrong?
No, I think you're right, but I don't know. You're just saying it. I'm like, I've never heard anybody say Colossi before. When has there been more than one Colossus we've had to worry about?
Well, this game, there's many.
Many Colossi.
Yeah. Some of them are hot too, because they got to be hot.
Is that like a trend now? Like what that weird dystopian game has got like kind of very feminine giant robots that walk around and try and eat you. That Forever Winter game. Is it like just like this sort of giant woman robot
maybe it's a kink thing? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I need to look into that. It's going to be my next game, fighting giant women robots.
There you go. And then there's the monetizations. It's a free-to-play game, so if all that grind and everything like that was a lot, well, you can always just buy it, and you can buy it.
Okay, how much can you can just buy a character and have it immediately?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it brought up the whole pay to win thing. Fascinating discussion I had with my community on Twitch, where it was like, is this pay to win? People are like, no, it's not pay to win because you can't compete with other people. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So let me talk about the monetization.
You can play in a group, right, and work together. So you're sort of like, hey, look how much better I am than you, Ted, who didn't pay any money. Ted, you cheapo.
I feel like the verbiage behind it, the vernacular, maybe that's the right. But we need to come up with some better words to describe like why this could be bad. So first of all, the monetization, the way they have it set up is that you have to buy their in-game currency because of course you do. And the characters are always slightly more than you can get for a bundle, right? So if you wanted to buy like a character, that'll be $6. Guess what? The only thing you can buy is $5 or $10 worth. And so you'll always have a little bit left over. And this is like, it's a tale as old as time at this point when it comes to free-to-play games. But this is it's just so obvious. Like, oh, cool. So if I want to get that, then I have to spend $10. And if I want to buy another one, I've only got a little bit left over, so I'd have to spend another.
I hate that mobile gaming trash is making its way into mainstream PC gaming.
It's frustrating. So that sucks.
It doesn't seem like that's going to stop. And there's that other game that came out from that Korean studio recently that made the news for having the very sexualized main character. You were
Stellar
playing
Blade?
Was that it?
Was it?
Yeah,
was
the
that
one where
was that
you're
Nexon?
like, well, it was a Korean company, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, Stellar Blade, yeah. I don't think it was Nexon though.
Okay, but I think it was a Korean company.
I believe you're right. I think it was a Korean company as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. They're culturally, they're different. They're cool with some of these things. So this game's also kind of got sexualized characters and then kind of aggressive monetization stuff. I don't know. I think it just works in their countries where they're from. I feel like these types of practices aren't going to take off quite as much in Western culture. And I would imagine that their audience for that game is just not going to be huge over here. It feels like we're not quite the right demographic for that.
I don't know. I mean, it's doing quite well on Twitch, and I know, I think it's had the most. They had 250,000 concurrent, and it seems to be rising slowly. But who knows if that will continue?
Yeah. Well, interesting. I imagine that will go until people run through the content gauntlet, and then they're like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm done."
It's not a bad game. I don't want to say it's a bad game, but I also found myself while I was grinding, I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Am I doing it because I'm enjoying it, or am I doing it because the idea of a future me will be having a really cool character who can like melt through everything? It's like, will that bring me happiness?
Yeah.
And I was starting to question why.
And that's a fine line when you find yourself asking that question. Usually the reason is because you're kind of hooked into the grind cycle. Because if you are having a good time and you're like, oh man, did you see that guy explode? Oh, nice shot, whatever. You're not thinking about, am I having a good time or not? You're just having a good time.
Right.
But if you're thinking about, should I keep playing this? Why am I playing this? You're not being distracted by the game actually being fun. You're going, oh God, another mission. How much more of this stuff? I didn't get the drop I wanted. I got to keep doing that. Yeah, it's a sign of a game relying way too much on grind and not enough on fun, which is a pandemic of AAA games.
I enjoyed my time with it, and I might continue the story. The story is ultimately bland, man. It is bland, but I do think it's a solid. It's a decent title. So I don't want to just dunk on it because there are things that I think are real rough, but I know that there's a lot of people out there who do enjoy just grinding around and they kind of shut your brain off and enjoy the ride.
Yep. And probably the what's the game with Tennos that we were just talking about? The
Tennos?
Tenno, isn't that what they're called?
Warframe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would imagine if you're looking for that type of game, I bet you Warframe is much better. And
Warframe is pretty good.
Yeah. That game's been supported for a long time.
And I hear it's getting better too. A lot of people have been talking about how it keeps improving.
Yeah, I keep thinking about coming back and checking it out, but I also feel like I've just missed so much now. I'm like just a kid in a candy shop, no idea what's going on, excited by everything. It's cool, man. It's cool. Been poking around in VR stuff a little bit lately. There are some people seem to be really dedicated to making VR games, and Sony is finally converting their PlayStation VR to PC, so you'll be able to use it on PC finally.
Nice.
A lot of people like their headset because it had really nice ergonomics and stuff to it, and they're like, "Wow, this is great! I wish I could use it on PC." They're finally.
I don't know why they had this. All the companies were like, "We want to make we want to be the next console, but for VR." It's like people aren't going to be down for that. Like, there's no shot because then you're just, first of all, there's only a limited number of games, but then.
Yeah, you're trying to restrict the hardware and then what hardware can play what game. And then, Apple, I think, is still going on they're trying to go the exclusive route with their crazy headset that's like $2,500. But yeah. And then the VR stuff, the biggest caveat to it still is just the interface and getting it set up. It's always just a pain in the butt. It's tough. It's annoying. They don't make it easy. They don't make it fast, convenient. There's some ideas that are coming along, but from what I've been reading, the VR community is growing like at a pretty fast rate.
Nice.
So it's why we keep seeing more VR hardware kind of innovated and evolved upon. And I'm kind of curious about it because I play VR, or I come back to VR in like stints where I'll take like 4 months, 5 months off of it. I'll be like, I don't want to play anything on VR for a while. And then there'll be some cool little game or something I see, and I'm like, that's pretty interesting. I bet that'd be cool in VR. And then I throw the headset back on.
Did you play anything specifically?
Checking out this game, this solo dev game called Convergence, which is kind of like I just put a video out on it today. That's like Stalker meets Tarkov, but in like a single player type thing. And it's cool because it offers some stuff that you just can't get from a traditional game, which is like true heart pounding intensity of feeling like all of your actions are really important and you have to do them efficiently and quickly. Like, you have to eat and drink and medicate in the game, but you have to do it physically. And so you'll be like drinking, but also like watching. So you're like holding a water bottle up and you're like, is somebody going to come around the corner? And so it's like this cool feeling of that mechanic never meaning anything in any other game, but all of a sudden it taking on all this additional depth to it. Like, there is a lot of cool stuff here. And I'm just very curious to see if it'll ever truly become like mainstream. I think it's right on the verge of VR becoming mainstream versus kind of like a fun little thing, but
niche.
Yeah, it's still got a lot of that. I think the industry as a whole, as you were saying, is sort of starting to realize that they need to come together and work together to make VR a thing, as opposed to trying to like compete for it being the next big thing. Because it's just got too many inconveniences surrounding it for it to be an easy to get into thing. And also it's
the idea of having to buy like 4 different VR headsets so you can appreciate like the 4 games that come out.
Yeah.
It's like, that's silly.
Yeah. Super silly. And they have to approach it a little differently because people just aren't going to be putting in 4 to 5 hour VR sessions, like gaming in VR has to be a bit different because it is kind of exhausting and it's mentally tiring and physically fatiguing. So people are going to be like, that was cool. I just did an hour to 2 hour VR session and that's good. I'm done for the day.
And you're drenched.
Yeah. Then you're drenched. You got motion sickness. I mean, some of those games, dude, it would ruin the day for me. I'd just be like, I don't feel good all day.
Oh no. That's that. Yeah. See, that's the biggest fear I have.
Yeah, it's fantastic for flight and racing stuff, though. Like that's anything in VR where you're supposed to be seated.
And your brain knows you're seated. Yeah.
Yeah, it really translates well for that. Shooter stuff, it's kind of getting there, but I don't know if it'll ever fully be there without like an Omni treadmill. You kind of have to. I was talking with operator Drewski about this a while back. You sort of have to like put your brain through VR boot camp for like a couple of days. And then by like day 2 or day 3, it's like, oh, you know what? I get that I'm not here and I know how to deal with this and I'm not going to make you feel horribly sick. But
yeah, your brain is really flexible, but it does have to learn.
Yeah, it shouldn't be an entry requirement of like, all right, you got to train your brain now to not want to throw up. You're like, how about I just not play VR at that point, which is most people, I feel.
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah. Anyway, I just been looking at some articles recently about it doing better, and I do keep getting sucked back into it, but I don't play it like I can play a PC game. When you throw on an RTS and your 8 hours go by and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Not in VR. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I hear you. Did you see that the Space Marines 2 beta apparently was canceled?
I didn't see that, but that is disappointing because I'm very excited about that game.
Yeah, apparently it's to ensure that they focus on make the best possible release. It's like,
So there's just some bugs, basically.
Well, it's like, why not have the beta then? So I think it's fine because a lot of betas are basically just a demo, and a lot of times it's just a vertical slice.
You're going to judge the game on the beta. So if there's a lot of performance issues in the beta, then people are going to be like, well, I don't want to play this game. It performs like crap, So they could lose sales due to the beta. It feels like.
But that goes to the
massive point. Yeah.
That goes to the point that a lot of people are making is like, ooh, if your beta is not really going to be up to snuff and you're struggling
so it's a canceled beta, not a delayed beta.
I believe it is a canceled beta, yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to read the article, but
that's not great.
Yeah, it's a little worrisome because that's like one of my more anticipated titles. It looks amazing. It looks like it could be one of the coolest titles this year.
Yeah.
But when you cancel a beta, it's like, well, is that in indication that, I know this is pure speculation. We will never probably ever know until the game actually comes out. But I just hope that it's not because that they're really struggling and that they just do not have the manpower to even come out with that vertical slice, and that things are still on track.
Yeah. And Atif in comments says that they're just they're taking on way too much for the initial release. Apparently the listed content in game modes just seems
quite
massive.
Large. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that could be not only is that amount of content hard to produce, but then you have to look at optimizing and bug fixing and making sure it's balanced. And it just gets exponentially more complicated and like more work. But it is, there's a reason why we're talking about it is because Space Marine 2 looks like the ideal Warhammer game. It's the game that everybody has always wanted, which is to be a Space Marine in the middle of the biggest battle you can possibly imagine, just wheeling and dealing, slicing and dicing. And really, that's always just been limited by our technology because You just had to make everything in corridor shooters for like 10 years because that's all we could render was stuff in a very small space. And then they started getting better, but then you're limited by how many NPCs you can have on screen because they're very CPU intensive. And then they're figuring out ways to sort of instance all of that and trick it so that you're only really calculating a few of them, but it's rendering out thousands.
And now they literally have hundreds on screen. They're like flying around and you're in the mix of it. Yeah. The game looks
it's a culmination of fantastic technology thrown atop one of the most visual feasts of a world, a universe that kind of exists really. Warhammer 40K is sort of in a league of its own. So it's a fantastic combination and hopefully it launches well. If it doesn't launch well, I do think that people will wait around for it to get good because it does look that cool.
Yeah. I hope that we don't have to have that situation because I'm getting pretty tired of it.
Wait,
yeah, just delay. If it needs to get delayed.
People will be upset if you delay, but they will be way more upset if it launches and is horrible to play,
Yeah, I'm getting Darktide flashbacks right now.
Yeah, Darktide looks so good. Do you remember how good that game? I mean, it still looks incredible. It's one of the best looking games out, and it just launched with a lot of bugs and not a lot to do at the start. And you're like, that could have used a bit more stuff.
It just needed more time in the oven, and they didn't give it to it. Yep.
Yeah, and then the character progression trees and all that stuff. People were comparing it to the Vermintide games, and they're like, Vermintide's got like 10x this amount of character progression, and
yeah.
I think they've updated a lot of it, but I don't know if it's quite at Vermintide levels.
They have done more, but I haven't jumped back in a long time, so I couldn't speak on it.
It's been a while. I did jump back in once, and they give you a lot of fun ways. I'm a ogre main in that one. It's just, I find it the most fun. And they do give you a lot of new ways to play the ogre in that, and a lot of progression trees that you have to think about more.
You actually have like a tree now that you can kind of spec into. That's cool.
You actually have to think. You're like, if I put 3 points over here, I can nab this ability, and then also I'll have enough to get this one. So you're doing a lot of theory crafting with it and testing, and
which is fun.
Yeah, it feels like kind of a Diablo action RPG type.
Yeah, you're creating your own build.
Yeah, so they did very good on coming back to it. But yeah, I'm excited for anything 40K, anything Warhammer. I think that's just cool, man.
Yeah, their universe is pretty dope.
I hope they make some dope movies at some point. It feels like the CG's finally getting to an affordable place.
Henry Cavill's working on a show.
Is it a show? Is it a movie?
It is a show. Yeah, I don't think it's a movie. Okay. Yep.
Be dope. I feel like it needs a show to establish the lore properly, because that 40K lore is insane. You remember Luton?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's got it. Like he started off in Battlefield, sort of struggled to find his like voice and his footing in the Battlefield community. He's like, I'm just gonna do Warhammer now. He's like the biggest Warhammer content creator. I'm so happy for him. He like kicks ass. He makes like 4-hour videos.
You can tell it's like it really is like his passion in life too. It's like Battlefield. It was like fun and stuff for him, but you're like, oh, this is your real calling, and he made it work, and it's like. It's exciting to see, Yeah,
he just narrates these incredible stories, and he does a very good job.
Yeah. Even I can watch him and be like, oh, I know stuff about Warhammer now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does really good work.
Have you read any of those books? You're a fantasy guy.
I have not. I've thought about it because like everyone recommends it, but I have not dived in yet, to say the least.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that you read tons of fantasy and you haven't made it around a Warhammer yet, which just means there is a buttload of fantasy out there.
There's a lot. It's almost like there's a lot of books in the world, Level Cap.
I know. It's too many, Matt. Too many. We got to do something about all these books, man. Okay.
Where's that thought going?
Man, I have been, I finished last podcast. We talked about the bear a bit and it giving me like an anxiety attack practically.
Oh yeah.
Finished season 3. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. It was good.
It sounds like you didn't enjoy it. Yeah,
it's a show that's like torture to watch, where you're like, the acting and the writing is so damn good. It is so good. Some of the performances in it, there's an episode where it's like Jamie Lee Curtis plays the mom, the crazy mom of this family, and there's an episode where it's just the mom and the daughter talking for like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes straight in a room. Nothing else is happening. And it is
just 20 minutes. Captivating
the whole time. You're just hooked to it. And the episode's over and you're like, nothing actually happened that episode. It was just a fantastic conversation and acting, and the cast in that show is just incredible. They leave it on a cliffhanger, like a bunch of it's not okay. Like, it even says to be continued. And you're like, come on, man.
At the end of the season, like the entire season. Yeah. I thought season 4 was out.
No, I don't think so.
Not yet. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Anyway, I enjoyed it. It was, the first 2 seasons were more enjoyable, and this one feels like it's a little bit extra torture, but
yeah,
I'm engaged for the 4th, man.
The first thing that pops up: why the bear is so hard to watch.
It's stressful. It's these very, very broken characters who don't make the right decisions.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there like, don't do that. Just do the thing. But they're also super relatable and very believable. So you feel like they're real characters, and then they just do bad stuff. And you're like, I don't like seeing bad things happen to good people, essentially.
Yeah, the people you like, right?
Yeah. So that's why it's hard to watch. Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I did finally try out Kingdom Come Deliverance. Have you ever played that game?
Either I've played it or I've watched a lot of content on it. I've been doing this for so long, Matt. Sometimes I can't even remember.
You can't remember what games you played?
Did I play that and make a video on it? I can't even remember anymore. But
so Kingdom Come Deliverance is a medieval, it's not fantasy, but it's a medieval simulator RPG where it's not like super sim, but sort of. And you play Henry, who has horrible things happen to him and his family at the beginning. And you are now on a bit of a adventure to basically rise through the ranks, it seems like, in like a very, very slow but fun fashion through like, I don't know if you're going to be, I haven't beaten it yet. But yeah, you start off as a peasant and you hit like a wet noodle, and then you slowly with training and you're getting better, become stronger. And it's just such a fascinating, interesting AA game that I've really never played anything like it, which is really fun.
And the graphics, at least when it came out, were pretty impressive.
Yes.
I don't know.
The graphics are great. They're still solid. There's some things that feel a little outdated, like the way they do grass and stuff like that feels like really pixelated. But besides
they're making a sequel to it, aren't they?
They are. Yeah. And now that I've played this, I'm like, okay, I can see why people are hyped about it.
I believe that game was UE4, and the next one will be UE5, and that could be crazy.
Looking. That doesn't surprise me. What's really cool is you can't go up and talk to anybody, but if you're on like a quest and you need to go and discover, we need to go figure out what happened here, you can just go up to a villager and be like, hey, do you know anything about this person? And there'll be a voice actor talking to you the entire time. And then they'll go talk to someone else and they'll say something that's kind of similar, but slightly different. But then one of their responses will actually be different, which will give you a hint to where you need to go. And they're all voice acted. And like, it just has like this organic feel to
that's
it.
Impressive that makes for it feel, a AA game, because that's a lot of work to get all those people, and
a ton of work. You also need to go and sleep. Like, you just need to get sleep, and you can go to an inn. No, you don't need to drink or anything. Oh, you actually have to eat, but no pooping. But you go to an inn and you talk to them like, hey, I would like to rent out a room. And then you ask them, okay, where is the room? And they will actually describe to you every single inn that you go to, like the person. So they've got voice lines and a dial. So just like subtle things like that, where it's like, hey, if you went to a random hotel in, wherever you live, and you ask, okay, where's my room? They're like, oh, it's just down the hall and to the right. And they'll do that same thing in this game. It's those little details that make it feel so much more authentic. And I love that.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is like you would never want those types of boring details in like say a movie because it kind of messes with the pacing, right? And you're like, we know the character's gonna figure out where the room is. I don't need to hear somebody describe where the room is. But in a video game, when you want to feel like the world around you exists and functions like a real world, then having those little nuances like that seems like they could be important. I don't know if I've played too many games that do that. I feel like Cyberpunk does a pretty good job of a lot
Cyberpunk
of that.
would be one that comes to mind. It does mean that you need to be in the right headspace and you need to be in the right mood for a game like that, because if you're just like, I want to go to point A to point B, I want to get it done, I just want to be able to like look on the map and be like, this is where I got to go to get the job done, then you're not really going to get that here. You really just kind of have to accept the fact that you're going to be kind of role playing, RPing in a medieval setting. So as long as you're okay with that.
And it's got like a pretty elaborate like sword play system too, right?
It does. The sword play is really finicky and like jank to start off with. I'm slowly starting to get better at it, but it is a little confusing to begin with. Yeah.
The game should be VR, so you could be in your room like, yeah.
Yes. They also have like timed quests, like most quests are timed, where if you're like a lord was like, hey, we need to go right out because we need to go and get these bandits. You're like, okay, I need to go do something really quickly. But you're a peasant. And so you go off and do some errands and then they just will peace out. They'll just go. And they're like, we're not waiting for you. You're a peasant. And so just once again, those little things to make it feel like the game isn't waiting for you. It's a world that's lived in. And it's those things that really add up for I think the overall experience.
That's cool, man. I can appreciate those types of games, especially when topically you describe it and you're like, I don't know if that's going to work in a video game. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, but the feeling it provides once you figure it out, it feels like I'm not in the, because we're all trying to not be reminded that we're in a game, especially when it's a game like Kingdom Come, which is an adventure. You're a person in this world. You don't want to be reminded that it is video game and you're getting the little checkbox for completing the mission and stuff.
What's also incredible, and I know most people are like, obviously, Matt, this game's been out in like 2018. I don't know why you're nerding out about it, but I haven't played it, okay? Is the way your character looks, if they're clean, if they've got blood on them, the stats that you have, are you charismatic? Are you a bully? And things like that. All of that will change and affect the way dialogue works. And it once again just makes it feel more real. So I would go up to someone. I arrived at the town in shambles. I just got into a fight and people are like, whoa, are you okay? Did you get like attacked by bandits? And then like hours later, I started to get some little bit more armor on. They're like, oh, noble knights, it is so nice for you to visit my shop. And I was like, yes, they're starting to recognize that I'm a bad, and it's like,
I would love to see the dialogue tree logic behind all that stuff.
Oh, I can only imagine.
The game dev brain in me is like, I want to know how they set all that up, because I bet you it's not simple.
No, I can't imagine it being simple at all. And then there's like other things where they'll give you like a choice of like, how would you like to influence this dialogue? And you would think like if you're like a big strength guy, right, where you're be better at bullying and being aggressive, that can work. But against like a guard, it might not, because it's a guard. Like they're also strong. So you would maybe need to take a more subtle approach. So it's not just your stats, it's also the situation. So you have to like think about it. And yeah, I know I'm gushing about the game right now.
No, I like that a lot. A game where, especially when you don't feel like, oh, it's a level 20, I can't beat a level 20. That stuff always just takes you out of it, because you're like, it's a game mechanic. I'm playing, because so many fantasy games especially just pull from the D&D rule set or the foundation, right? Where they're like, it's a chance that I'll be able to hit my attack based on their level and my level and blah, blah, blah. And cool, but what if we just threw all that out the window and stopped hitting you over the head with the fact that there's a bunch of math behind every decision being made? So it's cool, and it is a unique game. And I remember when it came out, people didn't fully know what to make of it, but it was different.
I think it had a little bit of a rough launch with like frame rate. I thought I remember. So I think there was a little bit of a controversy.
You know what? I do remember playing the beta now, and the frame rate was spotty. But nowadays you just throw your
4090 at it. Yeah. 4090. I get decent frame rate with my 3080 Ti with good graphics, so it's a gorgeous game.
Why are you always a gen behind with your video cards? You are a content creator, Matt. This is like being a race car driver, but you're like, I'll get a sedan or something. Like what do you?
Because it's money, and because I was at the top of the line when I really got the 3080 Ti. I went to frickin' Best Buy at like 5 a.m. in the morning.
3080 like at the end of its life cycle.
Because that was all that was available. That was all that I couldn't get it for. They didn't exist when I went to Best Buy at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Series is dropping, I think, later this year, Matt. Are you going to get it?
Yeah, I'll be picking that up. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the plan.
Cool. Are you still on an ancient CPU? How old's your computer?
5950X.
It's okay.
It's not bad.
It's a bit dated now, but
Well, I mean, it's around the same date as the 3080 Ti, which isn't that dated. It's just because I don't have a PC that literally just flexes the entire time.
I know. You're the only content creator I know who isn't like fairly up to date on all of their hardware and stuff. It's just weird to me. I like to make fun of you for it. I know people out there are like, okay, level cap, stop like bragging about your hardcore PC and stuff. But you know what? In the content creation world, everybody's like, gotta stay up to date because you have like a new 40. You need a 40 series card to try all the new DLSS stuff. And
you're not wrong. That's been the one thing that has been a little rough is that there's some games that would greatly benefit from having DLSS.
It would look better. It would run better. You'd be able to check out all these cool features. And then you're like, well, just wait.
But they're also thousands of dollars.
I mean, none of them cost thousands. Some of them cost over 1,000.
What does a 4090 cost?
Not thousands.
Yes, it is.
What is it?
4090. First thing that pops up, $1,700, $1,900.
Yeah, it's not even 2,000. So over 1,000.
Okay, you win this time, Level Cap. I guess I did say thousands. You're right.
That is pretty pricey, man. I'm surprised it's retained that value, but I bet you that'll drop off once the 5,000 series drops.
I mean, you say that. I think they've got to do something that is more economical because that's freaking bonkers. What is a 4080
Do they have
cost?
to, Matt? It's NVIDIA, the biggest stock in the world.
They do make more money than God.
You think they're feeling pressured to drop those prices?
Good point. Good, valid point. That's a good point. Let me see what this is just from Amazon. So yeah, just a 4080 is $1,400. So yeah, excuse me for maybe not wanting to drop $1,400. I haven't been keeping up on
the prices of things. That is pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
Cards used to be like a grand or less than a grand usually. I mean, most cards you could get a good one for $300 to $400.
I feel like you should be able to buy one for the price of a console, and that would be good enough. You'd think.
Yeah.
But I guess we live in a world where that's not a thing.
I don't know. I'm getting a pinball table with a 4070 in it.
Yeah, you're freaking ridiculous.
But it does make me smile.
your pinball machine is going to have more horsepower than my entire PC.
I'm gonna load up Crysis on it, baby.
Hell yeah, baby.
Isn't it funny that Crysis Remastered is horribly optimized and runs like crap? Yeah, that is pretty
ironic.
You're like, okay, all right.
Can it run Crysis? Yeah, only because it's not well optimized.
Yeah. Oh, man. I found out how much fireworks cost. I never really... doing 4th of July, I was always a kid prior, so I was going to shows. And now that I'm an adult with children, we're finally buying fireworks for the kids to put on shows. We put on like a little neighborhood show. They're pricey, Matt. Fireworks are not cheap.
How much did you spend?
Like $300.
It's okay. All right. I was expecting it to be like
4090 levels.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but still a lot of money.
Well, we pooled it with the other neighbors and put on like a pretty good show for them. Cool. But now I'm looking into it. I'm figuring out the fireworks lay of the land. If you order them on bulk from like, fireworks.usa or something like that. You can get these mega packages.
Were you doing fireworks where they fly into the air, or are they just kind of ground stuff?
Mortars and stuff.
Okay.
Pretty cool. But then I was like looking at the neighbors.
They're so dangerous.
Super dangerous. Well, so we were being pretty safe. Before the 4th happens, everybody posts.
Not to be like, a negative Nancy, but like, good God.
Kids, be careful.
You're literally they're called mortars.
When I was moving in to where I live now, I was moving like we moved in on like July 1st or something. Mm-hmm. And they were dropping off a few of those pods, those crates. It wasn't a pod, but the shipping crates that people can use for moving. We were going through like U-Haul or something. So our crates were orange and they look like, I don't know, pyrotechnic crates or something. And there's like this old lady that came down the block and was like, these aren't fireworks, are they? Because we live in a respectable neighborhood. And it's like, oh, that's kind of you, Matt. That's
it is me. I'm the old grandma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's me.
And I was like,
just want to make sure people are safe.
Like every single one of these 8-foot tall crates
is
loaded with fireworks, and we're gonna shoot them all off over your house. You lunatic. The fireworks? No, I'm moving into my house, you crazy old bat. She moved away. We got cooler
I was like,
neighbors.
Does she still live next to you?
I know. Oh my gosh, some of my move-in stories. I'll tell them after the podcast because
all right, sounds good.
Some of them are a little too juicy, but
oh wow,
a little too juicy for the YouTube,
Okay.
But yeah, we're gonna bulk buy some fireworks next year. And now that I'm like looking at it, they got electronic ignition systems, Matt. No more of this like running up and like lighting the fuse and running away. Like you can set up.
Oh, be a man, level cap. Come on, gotta risk your life for this.
If you want to do a coordinated show, Matt, where you're like, you got to keep the pacing up, because that was a problem with our show. We're lighting the fireworks and they go and explode, and everybody goes, "That's cool."
That was fun. Where's the next one?
Out,
you
drop
can just
another
go
thing
to
in the
a show, right? There's like places you can go where they do firework shows where you can just sit back and watch, and they're free.
Yeah, but okay. I got a 4-year-old.
I don't know why you're arguing with me.
I got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, which are more complicated to take out to places. And so doing a cul-de-sac thing in the neighborhood is nicer. You set up, you do a barbecue, the kids play with squirt guns, and then you set off some fireworks for them. It's a good plan. Just saying. It's fun. But yeah. Now I'm looking at electronic ignition. I'm like, this is all I need is another hobby to get into. But I don't know. I'm about to get full podunk over here and just like get into fireworks and be like, next time you see me, I'm gonna be missing a pinky or something.
I just looked it up. In 2020, 15,000 people were injured by fireworks.
Did you see? I don't know if this video is from this year, but you know what a Roman candle is?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, the ones that kind of shoot colored rockets out. They don't explode, but they go pretty fast and far. And so people figured out, even when I was a kid, they figured out right away that you can shoot them at each other. And so everybody just starts having Roman candle fights. But somebody posted a video of it was like an entire neighborhood having a Roman candle fight. It looks like Vietnam. It looks insane. There's smoke everywhere. There's tracers flying through the air. There's stuff exploding. There's people like diving behind vehicles and stuff. I'm like,
I mean, it sounds like fun, but it also sounds like a great way to lose an eye.
Yeah, you for sure want to wear some serious face protection while doing a Roman candle fight. Because also you're probably just going to get burned somewhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, if one of those things like gets stuck in you.
If it hits you, and it gets stuck, the coals or whatever,
Yeah, no, for last 4th of July, my son burned himself on a firework. Ooh. And this 4th of July, my daughter burned herself on a firework. So we're 1 for 1, 2 for 2.
They're okay, though, I'm assuming. It's not like bad burns.
Yeah, she grabbed the end of a sparkler. It was like going off, and we just figured...
Oh, it's so beautiful. I want to touch it.
Basically, pretty much. I was like, I don't know why. You just sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't expect them to do that.
Sparklers are like literally the tamest thing.
Yeah, but they're also insanely hot if you touch them. So, yeah.
The only thing tamer is those little firecracker things you just throw on the ground. They kind of spark and they make a
poppers.
Noise.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what's annoying about putting on a show for like a bunch of little kids is like there was a firecracker.
I have no idea.
Well, I'll tell you, Matt. I'll tell you. There was a firework called the Poopy Puppy, all right? You light the Poopy Puppy.
The Poopy Puppy. Okay.
And it produces this black sort of like poop stuff that comes out the back of it, and the kids think that's hilarious because there's a little picture. They do. There's a little picture of a dog kind of like squinting his eyes, looking like he's taking a dump.
He's pooping.
Yeah, and then at the very end, he just kind of goes and explodes, like in a very tiny little explosion. And the kids were falling on the ground laughing. They were so excited. That was like a $2 firework, Matt.
Nice.
We put on. I combined with other people. We put on like hundreds of dollars worth of explosions, and at the end of the day, that's all they were talking about was the Poopy Puppy.
Poopy Puppy was the star of the show.
Yeah,
so it just goes to show you gotta. It's not all about the money, you know. It's about.
I learned some lessons.
The comedy.
Yeah. And then the little spin. There's a tiny little spinner ones that cost like 20 cents. You light them and they spin like a top, and that's it. And that was like the second favorite among the kids. I was like, really? Not the ones that went up in the air and exploded and shook the earth, you know? Yeah. All right.
Sounds like you had a good time, though.
We did.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, man. F1 race this weekend. Solid race. You know what's funny is I started to talk about it, and there were some YouTube comments that were upset that I didn't talk about F1 in the last podcast because I saved it for a post-podcast show. But I will just say Lewis Hamilton, who's like one of the greatest racers of all time. I think he's like a 7-time world champion. 6 or 7. I think it's 7. He hasn't won in years. He's getting older. I think he's 39 now. And, you know, that's kind of...
Wow, ancient.
Yeah, well, for racing, man, it's all reaction times, right?
Aren't you 38, 39?
Yeah. There's still time for me to get into F1.
Yeah, you can do it.
I can get into it. Yeah.
You got that reaction time. I've seen you game.
Yeah, you've seen me game. I'll be fine. He won the race. It was his home race, and it was a pretty epic celebration and event. And he was like, it was cool to watch somebody that's like this senior, this veteran in the sport kind of like break down emotionally at the end, where you're like, man, this still means like so much to these people that have been doing it since they were in their 20s, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
I
younger.
still got it.
Yeah. So it was a great race this weekend.
Nice.
Highly recommend.
Have you been watching House of the Dragon?
No, but you have been recommending it, and I'll check it out when I re-up the HBO subscription, man.
I watched the most recent episode. No spoilers other than there's dragons in it, and the one of the coolest, probably one of the best fight scenes I have seen in years.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. And they did an exceptional job. So I don't want to say any more because even people who will be like, oh, that's a spoiler in itself. You said there's a fight scene. It's like, okay,
well, it's a show about people.
Yeah, it's a show about violence and, you know, politics and everything. So, but like incredible what they pulled off. Really, really, really cool. So loved it. The show is still phenomenal. They've just been continuously killing it. Never go to the book section of Reddit to discuss it because they'll completely different opinion. But
yeah,
for someone who's never read the book, it is just really, really well done.
That's exciting to hear because so many shows cheap out on choreography or like good fight sequences, and kind of fake it with that, like Lord of the Rings, they get that close range camera shot, you know, for the show, Rings of Power, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, they just did this because nobody there trained to fight well or something. And when you watch a really well choreographed fight, you're like, man, this is cool. And it reminds you of why fight sequences are so cool in movies. One of my favorites was in The Last Duel. Did you ever see that one?
I did, yeah. It was a good movie.
Spoiler, there's a duel in The Last Duel, and it's pretty fantastic duel.
I think they sold that movie in the weirdest way because it was not explained at all as to like what it was, and it was an amazing movie, but it was not what I expected at all.
Yeah,
but continue.
Yeah. The Last Duel is great. It's Matt Damon and
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver fight each other at the end, and man, is it a brutal fight! It is.
Yeah.
But you're there, and you're like, dude, this would be kind of sick to watch in real life, wouldn't it? You know, get some popcorn.
yeah.
Get some popcorn, some roasted newt on a stick.
Other. Yeah. I do like when fight choreography is. I watched. God, what was it called? The Kingsman. I don't know. It starred Timothée Chalamet, who doesn't look like someone who should be able to like fight anyone because he's so scrawny. But there's this great fight with him and another character, and they're winded. They're exhausted after just like 30 seconds of fighting because, like, when you're fighting for your life, your adrenaline is kicking in, and like you go through energy so fast. And so it was refreshing to see. Like the realities, people aren't juggernauts that just can keep going in a life or death situation. Like you get tanked quick. And I love when there's that little bit of real life that actually goes into it because not everything is fantastical.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Cause like I used to do wrestling in high school and those matches are so short because it's two people exerting everything that they have for like a short period of time. And like, that's as long as you can do it before it's just people kind of like flopping around completely out of energy, you know? And they're like, it starts to get less entertaining when everybody's exhausted and can't do anything. So it's like, that's how much time you have to perform at top physical performance before you're just spent.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you hear like these, books that will have these battles, like this guy, just dueling everyone for hours.
Well, Star Wars, Star Wars with the like Darth Maul duel.
Hours.
that duel was like forever, and you're like, it was a fun duel, but it just keeps going and
they
going.
are, as I said, fantastical. Like they're larger than life and everything. But if you're trying to make like your average person go through a fight, or even your above average person, like they're gonna tank real quick.
Yeah, it's a weird show that kind of threw me for a curveball. We watched the first episode of it. I think it's called My Lady Jane. Did you see that? I think it's on Netflix. And it follows it was one of the queens that married King Henry, Jane King Henry, but she was only like alive. Jane Seymour? Yeah, I don't know. Basically, it was one of his wives, and in history, she's only queen for a little bit because there's like a power struggle, and somebody frames her as being something or other, and they cut off her head or something like that.
Okay.
So this show is like, I don't even know how to describe. It's like they took that story and then said, "What if that didn't happen?" What if she didn't marry King Henry?
I like what ifs. What ifs are fun.
Fair enough. But it's sort of a, what if she didn't marry the king? And also, what if some people could transform into animals?
Oh.
And
I wasn't expecting that part.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of it. I was like, why you even pick Lady Jane at all? Like, why not just make a fantasy movie?
Just making it about turning into animals. Yeah, that's a weird decision. I was gonna say, because For All Mankind is a what if, and I really like that show where it's what if the United States lost the space race to the moon, and then it just kept going and then they go to Mars, and it's just incredible. It's really fun. That's a fun what if. But there's no animal transformation in that show, unfortunately.
It still exists within the rules of what we've set up. Yeah. There's no magic. There aren't an entire race of people that can also become animals at any point. So it's sort of like it's got notes of teen rom-com stuff happening too. So a little bit of what was that dumb vampire movie that everybody was into?
It's funny that you mentioned that because that was the first thing I thought of. Twilight.
Well, Twilight's kind of the quintessential example of stupid teenage romance, right? It's sort
of it also has werewolves, which is essentially a transforming person into a dog wolf, right? So
yeah, right.
Similar parallels.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Anyway, the Lady Jane thing is weird. I don't know if I'm gonna watch another episode, but it was well reviewed, so we checked it out, and I was like, oh, this is not a historical piece at all. This is a let's give you like a thimble of history and then just take it off the rails, baby.
It is a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes, 81 for your user too. So yeah, you're right. It is getting really good reviews.
Yeah, I might be a little old for it. The humor's it's a little more young adult humor.
The art style does look like it's more geared towards a younger audience. It just the cover of it, right?
Yeah, I can respect it if it's geared for the young adult audience. I'll give it that, you know. Mm-hmm. But for an old weathered man like myself.
For an old man like myself, yes.
Yeah, but that was a weird sort of, I was like, okay, I mean, I don't know. Somebody's like, I like this character in history, but what if? You're like, all right. It's a weird what if, man. A very, very weird what if. Well, I got more F1 stuff to talk about. And we should say, well, hey, whoa, before wrapping things up, I know you're waiting for Star Citizen news. It's been a while. It's been
funny
a while.
Because it's the F1 has turned into, Star Citizen has turned into F1 now, where it's just every day is F1, and now it's
there's been a lot of exciting F1 stuff, and nothing is happening in Star Citizen.
That's fair.
They're finally testing persistent hangers in Evocati, and from what I hear, it's an absolute disaster over on the test server.
Oh, no.
It's interesting because they made huge promises last year on what they were going to achieve, basically, in the next 12 months. And in their defense, they have hit a lot of their bullet points, but it's like 50%. And they get about 3 to 4 more months, I think, to hit the rest of them. And I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna make it, but a lot of waiting. 2024, a lot of waiting on Star Citizen to do the cool stuff. Cool features we've gotten now, but not a lot of. It's like features without the gameplay to back it up, if that makes sense.
So Star Citizen.
Yeah. But hopefully this next update with the persistent cargo stuff, or persistent cargo hangers, they're testing the new cargo hauling mission tree, which I'm very excited about, becoming a space trucker.
Yeah, no, that does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm like, finally a mission that takes advantage of these 20 ships in the game that are designed to be haulers that have since not really had much of a purpose. So
right,
that'll be cool. I'll be dropping by for that patch when it drops, and it seems like it's getting close, but it also seems like they might be trying to rush it because they're realizing how far behind schedule they are with stuff. But
well, I hope for the best.
Me too. And you can be my co-pilot on some intense hauling missions when those drop, Matt.
Hell yeah, dude.
I know you're gonna be like, how much cargo we got back there? Mm-hmm. And what's our fuel gauge? Mm-hmm. 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 We're taking notes and stuff. You're like, what's our route?
Making sure everything is locked in.
Yeah. I'll be like, hey Matt, can you check our capacitors? I think we blew a few capacitors in that last run there.
I'm okay with, if that was actually gameplay loop, I'd be down for it.
Yeah, that is supposed to happen at some point.
Well, good.
They did test the power relays. You can test the power relays right now, Matt. They're just not in the universe. They're in like a little squadron test environment, so you can go in and pop out capacitors and power relays and watch the ship turn off and stuff, and it's cool. You're just like, put it in the game, baby.
I want to infiltrate sneak aboard someone's massive ship and then sneak into like their capacitor and then turn off the power and it all turns off, and then sneak in, and then like when they try to go fix it, then blast them.
Yeah, no, that'll be dope. Matthew in chat says, did you see the F1 trailer? I did not. Is that the Lewis Hamilton movie? I'm going to have to go watch that as soon as this podcast is over, man. Holy smokes. I'm excited. He's directing a Formula One movie. I believe it's like a movie. I don't think it's about him, but maybe it is. I'll have to watch the trailer and see what it is. think Brad Pitt's in it or something. I think he's like one of the drivers, maybe. He's so old though, man. I can't believe they're going to cast him as. I think he's 60 now.
He is 60, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the dude
is definitely
looks
60.
Incredible for 60, but also just, I don't know. Yeah, okay, yeah, Matthew has confirmed it. It has Brad Pitt. Oh, baby. Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, baby.
There aren't enough good racing movies, honestly. It's like one of those things where there's a lot of people that are down for a good racing movie, and then when they make it, they screw it up somehow. And so it's sort of 50-50. You get a good racing movie here and there, and then a lot of bad racing movies, man. But there's I'm down. If Lewis Hamilton's involved in this one, he'll probably get at least the racing part right.
You would hope so.
Yeah, but good racing movies also writing too. So you have to have good characters, good writing, good tension. Yeah,
that's a good point.
I'll be seeing that one. Whew. Exciting stuff. Well, I think we should wrap up the podcast there. I'd like to remind everybody once again that if you would like to support our podcast more, you can check us out on Patreon. Subscribe, watch us live, come by for the after show party. It gets wild in there. We learn about all Matt's deep dark secrets, which we have to cut out of the main podcast, How much did we cut off the beginning of this podcast this time? All the live stream people get to see those ones.
Jesus.
Precisely. But Matt's going to leave you with some good advice that's going to
my life advice this time around is if, maybe every once in a while, just ask yourself, am I enjoying this activity that I'm currently partaking in? Because you might save yourself some time and, realize that maybe the activity you're doing isn't really bringing you much joy. And then you can move on to other things that maybe are bringing you joy. Is this related to a particular game that I played recently? Maybe, potentially.
Okay, good. I thought you were talking about the podcast at first. I was like, Matt, you can just talk to me about it.
No, I wasn't talking about the podcast.
Yeah, no, go find a good game, guys. There's so many good games out there. You can spend 2 seconds looking
Especially
for like
the Steam sale going on right now.
Yeah, screw the Steam sale. Just look at like what are the best games of each year or something, and work your way through that list, man. You're gonna find some quality stuff. I promise. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace out.
Take care.